Something that's very interesting in life in general is that typically if we have a really good adversary and we're willing to go the distance to learn how to battle them well, we thrive. And it's silly to correlate chronic pain to that until you have met chronic pain patients that have had pain their whole lives and you realize that they are at war with their pain. They are in a constant debate, argument, fight. They're always trying to beat down their pain, always. And what we can offer that patient is a very different approach.
Hey guys, today our guest is Dr. Eric Goodman. Dr. Eric Goodman is the author of an extraordinary book called True to Form and also is the creator of Foundation Training, which helps to quickly improve chronic pain, strengthen our posture, and enhance performance. Today, Eric is one of the world's leading thinkers on how to move optimally. Eric has also trained world-class athletes for better performance and has healed people of all ages and occupations of lifelong debilitating pain. Chris Hemsworth, the Thor, said that he has incorporated foundation training into his everyday workouts and now feels incredible. Jon Vernikos, who was the head of NASA's Life Sciences Division, who is in charge of keeping astronauts healthy before and after their flights, said that the foundation training exercises are the answer to her many years of research on the negative effects of sitting. I'm very happy to invite Dr. Eric Goodman to the show. Thanks, Eric, for coming to the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, BNS.
Thank you, Eric. Eric, before we go into the questions, can you share where can people connect with you and know about your work?
Sure. Our work is called Foundation Training. It's very, very searchable. If you put it into a search browser, there's everything from free YouTube content to very in-depth programming. So foundationtraining.com is our main website, and then we have an app that to log into the app and to sign up, you would go to stream.foundationtraining.com.
Thank you, Eric. Eric, my first question is that what made you to create foundation training?
That's an easy one. I had a lot of back pain. I was very young. But my pain got pretty bad by the time I was in my young 20s. And I'm 39 now, so roughly 15 to 20 years of playing with back pain and trying to understand it. I'm educated as a doctor of chiropractic in California, but I don't typically adjust patients. I don't typically manipulate the body in that same way. What I do is I teach them what I've taught myself over the past 10 or 11 years, which is how to strengthen the very small muscles that line the spine and align them accurately and actively so that the very large muscles around the hips, the lat muscles, the hamstring muscles, the big stuff, the power muscles can work appropriately. And it started very much in pain management. The performance side of foundation training that you spoke of is something that I found over the years. It was not something that I started with. I want to be very clear on that. I started 100% trying to get myself out of pain. I found a couple things and I was like, hey, you've got pain. Let me show you what to do. What about this? You could try this. You could try that. So I kind of went on this sort of self-funded effort to get information out there. And now, almost 10 years into that process, I've got a lot of information out there and it's called foundation training. So I somehow did it.
Thanks, Eric. Eric, you say that we move contrary to what our bodies are naturally constructed. What do you mean by that?
It's accidental. And it's not something that we're doing because of any one concentrated problem. Our lives are very hectic, very chaotic. So much of what we do involves a screen that is what I would call a convergent viewpoint. We're always converging. We're going away from these big peripheral visions that we have where we can see, right now I can see my fingers from the side of my vision. I can notice them. But as we slowly converge our vision, our shoulders round, everything comes closer to us. Our sternum begins to converge and drop a little bit. And these changes lead to adaptations that lead to bad movement. And they lead to movements that can hurt our neck, our shoulders, our spine, our hips, our feet. I'm a doctor, so I hear of complaints through the term of symptoms, through different symptoms that people experience. And movement has at least a small part of most people's symptomology. That's what I've come to after all these years is you can manipulate somebody, you can adjust somebody, you can even strengthen certain muscles and compartmentalize and sort of reduce the body to what the problem is. But movement is global. Movement is the entire body learning to coordinate and integrate together. And if you want your movement to work well, you need to literally readapt your body to its natural postures and out of those convergent, drooped, forward rotated, kind of crummy postures.
Eric, in this context, can you explain how phones are affecting our posture, if you don't mind?
Sure, very much like what I just said. So I'm going to turn profile. When we're standing tall, the back of our head is lifted up, our neck is long, our sternum is broad, but it's not driven forward like a superhero. It's just strong. Our shoulder blades are not squeezing together, and they're not pushing out. What phones are doing is they're taking that central tone, that powerful solar plexus, and it's creating a weight. So it becomes this rigid weight. And then our head, instead of that powerful position where we can look around on axis, it gets drawn forward by that weight. And this is a very uncomfortable position for people. And it looks like it just affects the neck, but it affects every single part of the body below the neck, from breathing to heart function to digestion to movement patterns to disc bulges and herniations and so many of the common things that we see. And it's crazy because it's literally, you're just looking at your phone, and eventually, if I was holding a book in my hand, it would be the same thing. If when I read a book, instead of reading it up here, I constantly let it take me down, eventually I would adapt that way to a certain degree.
Thank you, Eric, for the clear explanation. Eric, you say that foundation training is an universal accessory. What do you mean by that?
I mean, we could never stand alone. We are not an exercise program that anybody should just do. Meaning, if you don't want to stop all the stuff you're doing for yourself and then learn foundation training and disregard all of that other good stuff. I really believe that our work helps other people's efforts get better. So if you're out there doing running, cycling, yoga, Pilates, weight training, dance, whatever, anything, meditation, we're going to help your body be a little bit stronger, a little bit more what I call integrated, meaning the muscles are communicating with one another very well. And instead of the joints trying to stack and find this random center of balance, the muscles instead are very actively pulling the body into an active alignment. And that's the goal. That's kind of the key takeaway there.
Eric, can you say the ill effects of sitting too long?
So there was a little discussion of the shoulders coming forward. That's an up top discrepancy. That's a problem that tends to happen up top from the weight of the chest dropping, the shoulders coming forward. Sitting doesn't help that. But let's go to the bottom of the body. When we're sitting, our feet tend to kind of turn out, our legs tend to turn out, and our butt muscles tend to shorten in what's called adaptive shortening. Your butt muscles need to wrap your hip. They're very powerful. They're very big, and they communicate with even stronger muscles on the inner thigh called the adductors, the groin muscles. The groin muscles and the butt muscles need to work together. And when you're sitting, the groin muscles turn out and get too long, and the butt muscles turn out and get too short. They both are out of their healthy communication. It's perfectly fine for a small amount of time at a time. It's no problem. There's nothing wrong with sitting. And I don't believe that sitting is the new smoking either. I think that you have to sit well. And when you notice that your body is failing in some ways, it's not able to hold itself, that's when you stand up. That's when you move around. You mentioned Jon Vernikos, Dr. Jon Vernikos' support of our work. And what she recommends everybody in the world does is every 20 to 30 minutes, you just get up and move around. That in and of itself is a change that is huge for many people. Our change is much more detailed. It's in that standing up, how to stand up, how to breathe, how to hold yourself, how to position yourself. But what sitting does is it allows your back, instead of sitting up tall, we have typically back rests, and we lean against the backrest. And if you notice, you think about it, what a cell phone does is it puts us right there, and what that backrest does is it puts us right there. It's an identical position. It's teaching your body not to be able to absorb its power nearly as well as it needs to.
Eric, these days many people are suffering from chronic back pain. Can we reverse it permanently?
Can we reverse it permanently? No. No, I wish that people could. You can manage it daily and probably very rarely feel pain, but you do have to manage it. I can't ever get somebody's spinal degeneration that's, level 4, 5, and then S1. It's lumbar, sacrum. I can't ever teach somebody a good enough exercise or have them do it often enough to take the degenerative process out of the equation. Once degeneration occurs on bones, there's calcification that gets laid down. There's new bone growth. That's where a lot of the pain sensations and a lot of the neurological dysfunction and discrepancy comes from. It's trying to get through those bony changes that have happened. So with that there's always going to be an obstacle. Always. Something that's very interesting in life in general is that typically if we have a really good adversary and we're willing to go the distance to learn how to battle them well, we thrive. And it's silly to correlate chronic pain to that until you have met chronic pain patients that have had pain their whole lives and you realize that they are at war with their pain. They are in a constant debate, argument, fight. They're always trying to beat down their pain. Always. And what we can offer that patient is a very different approach, a very skill development based approach that helps them first to be completely informed as to how their pain is affecting them. Here's how your whole spine, all the nerves are working. Here's the central fulcrum of the body at the hip joints, and here's how you get that to first start working before you even worry about all of these other symptoms. And in doing that, you can get somebody with chronic pain to understand that their obstacle is their direction. It's literally where it's guiding them into understanding more about themselves, caring more about themselves, and having a better life if they're willing to understand it and go through it. And that's where we come in. That's my job, is to help people through that moment.
Eric, many people exercise for 1 hour and don't move at all throughout the day. What is the flaw in it?
You can't correct. Well, no, that's not true. It's actually okay. It's how you exercise. So if you're sitting all day and then you go into a gym and you do squats and you do a bike and you do a spin class and you stretch past, there's ways to do it. That's not going to correct very much. It's going to get your energy level up really high and you'll get the nice hormonal response from that for a few hours. You'll feel well, but it's going to break down those same degenerative patterns. It's going to feed into those. Before you go and you spend that 1 hour in the gym, make that first 10 minutes of that hour into body form. Here's how my body needs to correct what it did all day. Here's how my hip joints need to be under me. Here's how my spine needs to be listening to my hip joints. And here's how my rib cage needs to be listening to my spine. Once that's in place, once you know it, it takes 5 breaths, 10 breaths. Once you learn how to do these body positions, these anchoring and decompression exercises, these things that I teach people, once you have it, you have it. It's the learning curve that's very difficult for people. The learning curve of how to get yourself out of pain, how to breathe better, how to actively align better. That's more important than any duration that you spend exercising. Because the better you get at actively aligning, the more likely you're doing that throughout the day. The more likely you're sitting at your desk and you're typing and you notice this kink in the neck and you're just moving it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I know something that I can do here. Okay, my shoulders are here, they need to be here, so I'm gonna breathe that out of the way. My chest needs to be here and it's here. Okay, I'm gonna pull my head out of the way and I'm gonna breathe right here. And you're gonna practice these simple skills. You're gonna feel your SI joint or your sciatica pain coming up, and I'm gonna show you these hip rotation drills that strengthen the muscles surrounding the hips and again connect that integrated muscle chain. Until you've learned the exercises, it's kind of difficult to understand that, but once you learn them, it's very difficult to not add them to whatever else you're doing. So that's why we call it the universal accessory. Movement isn't a chore that you do for an hour or 30 minutes. Movement is how your body gets through life. So you want to move, regardless of the position that you're in, you want to strengthen and move your body with it. So if you're in a chair, sit strong, breathe strong, put your feet into it. You know what I mean? Like feel that little small change you just made. Feel what that does. That's all it is. That's health in a very small way, is these moment-to-moment experiences of trying to make yourself a little better.
Eric, you always say consistency over intensity. Can you talk more about that?
So I say intent over intensity, meaning it's what you're focused on. It's the form. It's how well you're doing the thing that you're doing. It's not how intensely you're doing the thing that you're doing. One of the problems that I have seen over the years in exercise, now, you look at CrossFit, you look at high intensity training, and there's incredible benefits to it. So first and foremost, let me say that there's incredible benefits to high intensity training. The problem is when you don't make the small changes to adapt your body out of its adaptations, and then you go into high intensity training. That's when we get to have a little bit of an issue. But the most impact I've had on performance athletes has been with removing them from high intensity weights for usually 1 to 2 months, sometimes up to 3 months, and then putting them into a body weight program. So that's the idea, is don't, intent over intensity is, you're better off doing the right thing a little bit at a time, making sure that the form is done well, making sure that things are really as they're meant to be, than you are showing up, pushing as hard as you can, and just wasting yourself without that intent, without that focus on form and how well you're doing things. So that's where that idea comes from.
Maybe, Eric, that's why you said lifting weights is not necessary but an accessory.
Well, look, I do believe that for most people in most walks of life, you don't need that much weight. Your body is plenty. You look at lifelong yogis, lifelong Pilates people, lifelong calisthenics people, they stay pretty strong. For looks, for certain recovery things, you do use weights. I'm going to show you, like I have this right here. I use this all the time. I have a heavy kettlebell that I lift every day, more or less. I do something with it every day. And it's not super heavy, but it's heavy enough. It's like 60 pounds or so. And when I use it to practice primary movements. Squats, hip hinges, shoulder presses, a Turkish get-up, and a deadlift. And those movements, excuse me, those movements are very powerful. They're very helpful. I spent about 10 years of my life where I really avoided strength training, other than my body weight work. And what I have found is, now that I'm into my later 30s, entering, I'll be 40 at the end of this year, I want to get a little stronger. I've been, for about 2 years, I've added kettlebells and deadlifting pretty steadily into my work. I don't go super heavy. I weigh 220, like about 210, 220 pounds, and I will maybe go up to a 300-pound deadlift on my heavy days for a few reps. So that's it. That's as far as I go. My typical strength training is my body weight with maybe a 60-pound kettlebell. But I have had a mild change of heart as I've gotten a little bit older, in that there are major hormonal benefits to even the slightest bit of resistance training. So my goal with resistance training is to find the minimal effective dosage so it doesn't harm my body, and I'm instead getting all of those strength benefits out of it.
Eric, why working against gravity is essential for our vitality?
It's what we're made to do. Our kinetic energy. When I say kinetic energy, I mean, just like in physics, there's a friction, there's a resistance that is required to form energy in the human body, form heat, use calories. When we're exercising well, breathing well, moving well, that generates our literal energy in life. And we kind of have this perpetuating system where a little bit of work yields a lot of energy. It changes over time, and stress and work and relationships and all of the other environmental and lifestyle factors impact us. But at the very, very heart of our self-care is this little ability to just breathe well, move well, as well as possible. Really understand ourselves better through the way that our body moves. Learning about our basic fundamental ranges like breathing, like hip hinging, like the way that our feet connect to the floor, the way that our hands connect to each other and to other things, the way that our head is held above our neck, either by the back of the neck or the front of the neck. Each of these small kind of windows into the body offers us this ability to better understand ourselves and immediately pull ourselves into an active present moment, an active present sort of meditation moment. I can't tell you how many times in my life over the past many years where I've been in a stressful situation, I've used my feet and my breath and my posture to center myself and to get my head out of the stress and into what needed to happen at that moment. That's where that idea about intent comes in. That's where the idea of what you know about yourself is almost more important than the symptom you're trying to address. Symptoms are messages. Those messages translate pretty easily once you understand how to translate them. And sometimes when they don't translate, it's your body saying something's wrong. Go to the doctor. If you don't understand this message, go to the doctor. Go get something checked out. Get an MRI, get a CT scan, get an X-ray, whatever has to happen. But our body is constantly trying to communicate with us. The less we try to master everything and the more we focus on very basic fundamentals of health, movement being one of them, and the fundamentals of movement being an even more dialed in piece of that, it's been my experience that the healthier you get, plain and simple. When you try to go too far down the rabbit holes, unless you're truly an expert in one or two things, you're going to get lost. You're going to go too far, too fast, and you're not going to enjoy the journey of creating kinetic energy, moving well, learning how to perpetuate strength in a way that you don't need a gym for necessarily, but you can really strengthen your body with its own resistance, maybe a little bit of additional with kettlebells or a little bit of weights if possible. You learn how to do that and you just get better at experiencing life. It's the best way I can put it. You experience a little bit more, you feel a little bit more, emotions drive you a little bit less, sensation drives you a little bit more. It's a nice thing. I don't know if that answered that question, but I'll try again.
Thank you, Eric. Eric, you say that modern body is super compressed. Can you talk more about that?
It's the same as those positions I was talking about. I'll use those same positions of the cell phone in the hands, rounding the shoulders and dropping the sternum, and the pelvis when you're sitting sort of turning out and tucking under you. And what that does is it takes your midsection and it compresses all of it. And in that midsection, if you draw a line from your belly to the back of you, you're going to see all your vertebrae. Those vertebrae are individual joints suspended by muscles capable of resisting gravity. If those muscles can't individually do their jobs, there is a collective compression that begins to get worse and worse and worse over time. You see it in things like scoliosis, you see it in Scheuermann's disease, you see it in all sorts of different lumbar disc compressions, cervical disc compressions, thoracic compressions. You see it in plantar fasciitis from a sacral nerve. You see it in lateral knee pain from a sacral nerve or from a lumbar nerve or from a, there's these referral points all over the body. What you feel is not always what you're experiencing either, which is kind of a slightly frustrating thing. But people just need to understand that they have control over a good amount of these things. I told you can't change those degenerative changes at the disc or the joint, but compression you can absolutely change. Compression is an active process. Compression is the body's absorptive system not working well against gravity. I'll go back to Jon Vernikos again, who's the NASA director, and she saw all these detrimental effects from the lack of gravity in space. And when these astronauts returned, they needed to learn how to absorb gravity again. So she was able to, in a very unique way, see what types of movement patterns did and did not help them do that. And our hip hinge based posterior chain integration axial decompression exercises turn out to be an ideal way to do exactly what you're asking, to take you out of compression and into a more active, metabolically active, muscularly active way of moving.
Eric, can you explain what is decompression breathing?
It's exactly what I just said. It's that process of expanding everything at the axial skeleton. The axial skeleton is the spine, it's the rib cage, and it's basically the skull. It's like the center of you. When you expand that center, not individual discs, mind you, not individual segments, but the entire torso, front and back, side to side, top to bottom, all of it is expanding as you inhale into the lungs that are in the rib cage here to here. As you inhale as big as you can, especially to the back of the rib cage. Most of the lung tissue is in the back of the ribs. The better you get at inhaling into that, you learn decompression breathing, and it's a very specific protocol that I teach, and it's in every single foundation training exercise. You have to learn how to decompression breathe in order to do foundation training very well. It's just one of the prerequisites.
Eric, can you show to audience what an ideal posture looks like?
I can, but I mean, this is my version of it. You can't see me 100%, unfortunately, because of the camera angle. But what I'll show you is at my head. Okay, you'll know you're in ideal posture when your feet are facing forward. Forward is not turned out. Okay, it's forward. It's the outside edges of the feet facing forward. It looks almost convergent. Your head, as if your head was the lever that could lift your entire body weight off the ground. Yep. And the most important piece of that is this lever right here. So take your finger and press the pointy bone at the base of your skull and find that. Now, as you lift your chest and lift that as high as you can. Yep, keep going. You feel that central lift. Now take a deep breath into that. Now, as you exhale, just stay there. You can take your hand off, but stay in that position and feel how many muscles in your torso are active. You feel that? That's ideal posture. It doesn't have a look, it has a feel. The feel is that your body is supporting itself as well as it can, and it's really trying to lift away from the ground. That lift is right here, right here. The back of the rib cage, the sternum, the head. As those lift away from the ground, your body will naturally find a healthier posture. Okay, and that's, again, the goal of decompression breathing.
Eric, can you share a testimonial that you still remember till today?
Yeah, I have a lot. I've been very fortunate in my career so far. You know, from a young age, I was starting with some pretty interesting athletes. First group of athletes was an Olympic team, the United States men's water polo team for the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games, and I had them for a year. I learned a ton about performance in that community. Very successful year, too. We got a silver medal at the Olympics, the first medal in 20 years. Haven't gotten one since either, which sucks. But that team led to a lot of different athletes. And one of those athletes, you can actually read about this in the foundation book, the first book I wrote in 2011. There was a guy named Brad Seaman, who was a triathlete that was about my age now. So he was a little older than me at the time, but he was about my age now, late 30s. And he had a car accident, and it was a crazy kind of freak thing, but the car accident had severed an artery that was affecting his brain, and they were able to correct it. He didn't, he had neurological loss, but he didn't die. He was able to recover a good portion. When I met him, he was about a year and a half into recovery, and he was at a point where he could kind of walk with this really, he just kind of dragged the left side of his body around a little bit. He was one of the first chances I had to really see my work change somebody. And in about only a 7-week period, when I worked with him pretty intensely, maybe 3-4 days a week for about 6-7 weeks, we got him running. I mean, he still had, his run looked a little bit cattywampus. Like he had a little bit of kind of a hiccup. He wasn't the fastest guy on the track anymore. But we went from barely being able to walk without a walker as a very fit person to holding himself up high, to getting his hips to move accurately, to getting his feet to dorsiflex accurately. And while there's always going to be probably a 10 to 15% discrepancy side to side, he now has a completely manageable discrepancy that he's had now for years. I mean, this was one of my first patients in 2008. So that's 12 years ago. And they still, that what happens with foundation training is it launches you into a slightly different physical trajectory than you might have otherwise had. And Brad was just one of the first guys that I can still think back. I can still think back to working with him in Boulder, Colorado, watching him walk down the path and just being like, it's working. I can't believe this, but this is working. And that was one of the first times I got to really try my ideas, and it worked. And now I've seen it with a lot of people, and it keeps working. So I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you, Eric, for sharing that. Now we have questions from subscribers. Annie is asking, I have acute back pain. What should I do immediately to reduce the pain?
So the first thing, now I've never met this person, I've never seen the injury. So if this is your first time ever having back pain, I mean, for anybody, if this is your first time having it, it can mask a lot of symptoms. You have to get looked at. If you haven't had an x-ray, if you haven't had an MRI, I can't recommend that enough. Across the world, I've never seen your back, and I'm giving you very general advice. When you're ready to turn it around, when you're ready to kind of pull yourself out of the symptoms, we have exercises called supine decompression, standing decompression, lunge decompression, and anchored bridge. Those 4 exercises are typically my acute lower back disc injury protocol. And I'll have somebody very slowly learn a supine decompression first. We'll do 2 or 3 rounds. So I would recommend you you can Google or search supine decompression foundation training. We have everything from YouTube videos to a catalog of exercises. They're in books, all these different things. So you can find it. I know that. So find foundation training decompression exercises. Learn the tutorials on YouTube very slowly. Notice if you're feeling that sensation shift off of the lower back. That's the first sign that it's helping. Really listen to the details that we push you through. Listen to the foot placement, listen to the hip placement, listen to the shoulder placement, all the small rotations. If you can feel yourself taking a little bit of tension off your lower back, go all the way down that path. Keep going, learn it very deeply. If you're getting an increase in symptoms, I want you to go get that MRI or that x-ray and see what's going on. Okay?
Thank you, Eric. And Paul has a question. He's asking, can you share top 3 tips for people who work all day in front of computers?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, you have to get the weight of your head off of these small muscles back here. So if you're at your computer like this and you're looking and your eyes have to look up to find the screen, you're contracting and compressing the back of your skull, and you're automatically dropping your sternum forward. So that's 2 things right there. Number 1, lengthen the back of your neck. So sit up tall and pull that pointy bone at the back of the skull up as you sit up, and you'll feel these muscles right here, the sternocleidomastoid muscles. You'll feel them take the weight of your head from here to here. And then all of a sudden you're long. The front of you is longer. The next thing is allow your hip joints to rotate in. So when you're sitting at the computer, slide to the front of your chair and angle your hips and your feet in so that the big toe joints are pointing at each other. And just keep your heels and big toes and small toes on the ground like they're pressing into the ground for 30 seconds. See if you can touch your knees together. This is called a seated decompression. It's in a bunch of our books and videos. You can learn it easily. It's just taking our decompression breathing principles and our anchoring principles and putting it into a seated posture. You do it for 30 to 60 seconds at a time, and that's it. And then you go back to however you were sitting. But every 20, 30 minutes, you slide to the end of the chair. You take the weight of the skull from the back of the neck to the front of the neck. You breathe into the sternum and into the back of the ribs, and you get the feet to converge. So the torso gets bigger as the hip joints converge in.
Eric, would you like to issue a 7-day challenge to our viewers?
Would I like to share a 7-day challenge? Yeah, absolutely. Go on our YouTube. We have tons of free stuff. Go on my YouTube and try 1 or 2 of our videos every day for the next 7 days and prove me wrong. That's all I ask. Prove me wrong that this will not help you. Or I believe it will help you. If you do it for 7 days, chances are you're going to feel your hamstring muscles, your butt muscles, your back muscles engage more than you've realized they were around. You're going to feel the rib cage muscles get a little bit tired and fatigued, and you're going to realize that you got to strengthen this. I just really suggest you do that. So I'll give you a video to try. Go to actually we have literally a decompression tutorial and an anchoring tutorial on YouTube. It's myself and my main coach, Jesse Solis, and the two of us teach you these things as clearly as we can for free. So go check it out and get better with it.
Thank you, Eric. Eric, before we leave, can you share once again where can people connect with you and know about your courses?
Sure. The best is foundationtraining.com. That's our site. We're actually launching a new website this week. It's the same site. We're just have been working on an upgrade. That's all. If you want to go really far down the learning process of foundation training, our streaming app is a very good opportunity to do that. We have certification courses. They're currently on hold as a result of the global pandemic that we all get to enjoy being in right now. Hopefully everybody that's watching this is staying healthy and their families are healthy. But that's it. Just honestly, put foundation training into your web browser and you're going to learn a lot of stuff. If you take the time to go down, you're going to notice that I've been working extremely hard to get information out there for nearly 10 years now, since 2011. My first book came out in May of 2011. Since that time, I've been working very steadily to get a new style of movement information out there for people that need to get the power back into their bodies. You don't want to be as dependent on doctors. You don't want the surgeries. You don't want the pills. That's why our program exists, and I hope your audience takes a look at it.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much for coming to the show and helping us.
My pleasure, BNS. Thank you so much for setting this up, and I hope this helps some people out there in your community. bnsgokugreat. Go for it. Click it. Subscribe. Give this guy a shot.